All right, so we're wrapping everything up. Let's pray really quick, and then we'll get started. So God, thank you for these 9 weeks that we've had together. I want to lift up Pat in prayer, and I want to just remind my own heart that there are moments that seem overwhelming, and there's moments where there are times where we don't know what to do, but there's always a time to go back to you and pray and find your solace, find your strength. And thank you for giving us an opportunity to study one last time together and think about your word. And in this time in particular, open up our minds and hearts to hearing about this idea of from fear to faith, but with an emphasis on love. And we pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so the first, I'm going to give you, unlike before where I ran around the room and did all that, I'm going to stop for a second, and I'm going to do some, what I typically don't do, which is I'm going to read, and I'm going to think about my notes, and as I'm sharing with you, I don't want to miss anything this time because I want to share them, and I want you to think about them, and then we'll break them apart and kind of go from there. But when we think about this idea of fear to faith, we broke it down, but we saw that fear was kind of this image of what we don't want to happen in our lives, and faith is an image of what we do want to happen in our lives. And fear is all those temporary things that seem to catch us up. And remember, we shared them up here, and we had money, intelligence, appearance, talent, skill, power, and status over there. We had the cross in the middle, and then we had eternity over on the other side. And the eternity is the people in this room. Can't take money, can't take your intelligence, appearance, talent, skill, power, and status, any of that stuff with you, but you can by sharing the gospel and sharing love with another human being, so they see you completely different. They see something that's inside of you that propels them to think about why do you handle things like that in times where you're afraid? Why do you look different, or why? How is it that it seems as though some people would completely fall apart, but yet you seem to find a way to stay together? And there's moments in our lives where we have the opportunity to not just know God, there are moments where we have to find God. And I want to talk a little bit about that this time with this idea of from fear to faith again, but I want to start with just these three things. So love changes people, love rewrites identity, and love turns fear into faith. So love changes people. So when we remember what we talked about, when we have love that's in our heart, it's completely different than we have fear in our heart. I think that makes sense, is if you can put the right stuff in you, love, God's faith, His scripture, the things that help us on a daily basis, that truth completely changes the way we live. Because we talked about that idea of you've got these emotions, the heart, those things that seat our will, whether we do something or not. Then we have this thinking part, the triangle that we talked about. So we had the emotions, we had the thinking, and we had the action. And we used the different scriptures to talk about that. Above all else, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life. And then from there, we went up to do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world in Romans, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And the renewing of your mind is hitting that fear with the truth, those scriptures that are true, because those will always guide you completely different than fear. And then finally, God cannot be mocked. He is not going to be deceived. You reap what you sow. Those actions that we do that come from fear are completely different than the actions that we do that come from faith. So love changes people. And the reason it changes people is because that's what God is trying to do for all of us. He's trying to show that He loves us, and the scary part is we'll try to reject it. We'll try to deny it. We'll try to do something temporary to figure it out. No, I can control this. And then our different personalities come into play. So love changes people, love rewrites identity, and love turns fear into faith. Okay, so I want to share this first slide with you on this idea of, and here's just a simple question. What are some things that we know that are out there every single day? You can look up here if you don't. Look away for just a second so you don't look at it, but it's on your outline as well. But what are some things that you know are invisible, but the byproducts of them? You can't paint them red and put them in a box, but everybody sees them eventually through a behavior or through what we see happening to something. And so I put some of them up there, but we talked about, I just put up, gravity as an example. So things we can't see, but everyone knows are absolutely real. So gravity, can't see it, can't touch it, can't bottle it, can't paint it the color, but take your phone and throw it on the ground, or just drop your phone from here and let it hit, and you're grateful that you bought an OtterBox or something to protect your phone, because those phones will break. And it's not because they're breaking, it's because they fell from a distance, and the ground is hard and glass is not as hard as concrete, and gravity all of a sudden becomes very real. The wind, it's invisible, yet it moves trees, lifts planes, reshapes landscapes. You don't see the wind, but you see what it does. When I was in college and I was studying so I have 2 degrees, one in science and education, another one in biology from UT, and we were studying, I have a minor in botany, which is just absolutely, you can use it every day. I never do. But I studied paleobotany and plant physiology. Oh, it's fascinating. And as I studied all those things, there's a term that they know I've used before, and the term is thigmomorphogenesis. It's a fancy term that just means morph is shape, genesis creation of, thig is touch. So when you put those 3 words together, thigmorphogenesis or thigmomorphogenesis, it literally means the plant changes because of touch. So, and one of the ways a plant can change or produce different ways to protect itself, if somebody goes by it and brushes it, if a ant or something or an insect tries to bite it, it'll produce different things to protect itself. It also knows if rain is hitting the top of it, it'll produce a different type of hormone in order to create growth, because it knows it's raining. There's all these things that happen that we don't necessarily see. We can see rain, we can see it, but we don't realize that by rain hitting something, all these other unseen things are happening. So anyway, I've always loved that word, thigmomorphogenesis, because I just think first off, it's fun to say, but more importantly, wind is an example of it. When wind pushes something or moves something, it creates movement within plants. You don't see it. You don't see the wind. You feel it. You can feel wind, but you don't see it until all of a sudden you experience it. Time. You can hold it. You can't hold it. You can't slow it down, but you feel it in your bones, your memories, and your milestones. I think time is one of those things we all realize we have. We think we have unlimited time until we don't. And then we think time is forever until something happens that slows down time. But you can't, again, we look at it on a watch, but you can't hold it, you can't slow it down, but you definitely can feel it. Your thoughts, no one sees them forming, but they shape decisions, relationships, and entire lives. It's one of the toughest things that we have to deal with on a daily basis is the thoughts that we have every day that control us. Some control us for bad, which we've been talking about, this idea of fear, and others control us so that we point towards truth. And I highly recommend the latter instead of the former. So thoughts, no one sees them forming, but they shape decisions, relationships, and entire lives. I used to do a talk called Don't Let Your Negative Past Camp Out in Your Dream Future. It was a keynote I used to do for companies. And I'll say it again. So don't let your negative past camp out in your dream future. Have you ever heard this term before where somebody will say, your past or your negative past is kind of like luggage and you carry it with you? Ever heard this kind of term before? It's like a metaphor. And so every bad thing that's ever happened, you kind of carry it with luggage and you just drag it around everywhere you go. I'm here to tell you it's way worse. It's not luggage that you carry around. Really negative thoughts, the thoughts that have shaped part of how you see yourself, your identity, you're not dragging them with you. You're actually sending them forward. And so that's why I created the talk, Don't Let Your Negative Past Camp Out in Your Dream Future. If you've ever been hurt, if you've ever done something that you regret, or any of those type of things, those thoughts can be so powerful that they'll wait for you in the next relationship. The next time that human being interacts with you and you're like, oh, I see what's happening. Because your negative thought isn't just something that's dragging behind you. Your negative thought actually camps for you and waits for you so that you never have the future that you could possibly have. Okay, so thoughts. Emotions. You can't see them. You can't see joy. You can't see grief. You can't see hope, but you see their fingerprints on people's faces, choices, and behavior. There's all of these things that we can't see, but we feel them. We witness them. But if you tried to paint them red and put them in a box, you couldn't find any of them. Okay? And then the last two, which I think it's next. These two are what we've been talking about. One is evil. And evil is you can't see it with your eyes, but you see its effects everywhere. Brokenness, betrayal, injustice, destruction. You don't have to see evil to know it's real. You only have to see what it produces. And then finally, love. You can't see love as a physical object. I wish you could. I mean, we try to. We try to put it in cards. We try to make Valentines out of it. We try to make little heart-shaped things that make us recognize what a heart is. But if you tried to say, here, give me love, you'd have to do it so that I could experience it. But it's invisible. You can't paint it red and put it in a box or put it in a little carrier and walk around with it. You have to do something. You either get to give it away or you get to experience it by someone else giving it to you. You can't see love as a physical object, but you feel it in sacrifice, loyalty, forgiveness, and presence. Love is invisible, yet it rebuilds what evil destroys. It restores what fear breaks, and it resurrects what shame buries. The most powerful forces in your life are the ones you cannot see. Gravity pulls you, wind moves you, time shapes you, thoughts guide you, emotions drive you. Evil tries to break you, but love is the only one invisible force that can make you new. So as I finish up this series, I wanted to go back and forth through this idea, but there was something that struck me when I was thinking about, what's fear and what is faith? And I probably should have done this first. Like we've been talking about fear to faith now for 9 weeks, and I probably should have made the foundational thoughts first, but all of a sudden it dawned on me, well, how about I just finish with it? How about we just pull it all together, and I'll give you my thoughts on fear and faith. So I want you to, let me make sure, go to the, oh no. What is that? Well.
Oh, it's Copilot. Just exit out of it.
Where is it? Okay. Go ahead and go to the next slide. One more. Okay. One more. Yeah. So fear distorts how we see ourselves. I like that word, distorts. Do you know what that means? Distorts? We're not going to break apart Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic or anything like that. There's no need. What's a distortion?
Changes the way you see it.
Yeah, it's. I like to think of this example. I want y'all to kind of consider this, but if you might not have because you don't get to go to them anymore. But do you remember the old carnivals and they would have those weird mirrors and they would distort you in all different ways? Okay, I want y'all to really think about that because I want y'all to have that picture in your mind because you stand in front of a mirror and as you're standing in front of that mirror, especially those what we call a funhouse mirror, is it distorts your image that you're looking at. And so when I was writing this and I was thinking about that, that's what I was going through my mind. Fear distorts how we see ourselves. It's like we're looking in a mirror and we know it's us, but fear messes it up so bad that it doesn't look right. And so we see ourselves completely wrong. Faith, on the other hand, restores how God sees us. Now, when I first was contemplating how to write this and thinking about it, I kept going back and forth on this idea how God sees us. And the problem is that fear messes us up so bad that we don't see ourselves right. But then when God already saw us right. I don't know if you know this or not, but that's what I'm trying to get to. God already saw us the right way. Then we let fear enter our lives. And then it's like walking in front of a mirror. Not God's mirror, this funhouse mirror. We literally create a funhouse mirror that everybody gets to go in front of. And we're like, I guess that's who I am. And how do we do that? How do we end up thinking that's who we are? Because of all our negative past and the things that we did and the things that we're sad about and the things that we're ashamed of and a million other things that happens that immediately when we look in that mirror instead of God's mirror and how he sees us, it's how that mirror is now distorting through fear. And then we all walk around thinking that's the truth. It's really hard to experience God's love when you're looking through a mirror that distorts you. You remember what we talked about with screw tape and wormwood, and how the number one job is, the devil is not very creative for each individual. He's very creative in general, but he's terribly uncreative for human beings. Individually, he'll find the one thing he wants to pick on about, and he'll not stop until your very end. He'll just find whatever it is that he knows can bother you, and then he'll just keep poking on that one thing. And I've said this a million times to Wendy, but I'm not tempted by alcohol or anything. You can walk me by 3,000 bars or anything like that. I'm never going to be tempted by that stuff. But there are other things that you don't need to understand all of them right now today. But if I was vulnerable enough, I would share real stuff. But the reality is that I'm going to share more in just a little bit. But there are other things that Satan still uses every single day. He can get me really good with my pride or my ego, or he can get me really good with things that I think about. I mean, how many times do I have to fall for the exact same plot? Like, I've read this book 10,000 times and I'm going to fall for it again? Like, don't I know the ending of this story? No, that's how good fear is. It distorts how you see yourself, and then you carry it around. So fear distorts how we see ourselves. Faith restores how God sees us. Love transforms how we see each other. So let me give you a couple of things. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of fear. So fear takes a truth. You ready? Fear takes a truth and pushes. This is not in your notes. I'm just sharing with you. Fear takes a truth and pushes it to an extreme. Okay, what do I mean by that? The truth is, and I think we all can experience this, the truth is that I made a mistake, right? Oops, I made a mistake. But what is fear's version? I am a mistake. So God is like, hey, the truth is you made a mistake. It's okay. You messed up. Just ask for forgiveness. No. Satan's saying, the fear version is, you are a mistake. You are never good enough. You'll never be okay. That's the distortion of the funhouse mirror I'm trying to explain to you. And if you're not careful, you'll let that be the mirror that guides you on a daily basis. It must be absolutely painful. I know when I've done it. I know when I did it. I know when I get off base. I know when I live Jesus. Remember we talked about when I live Jesus in the car? Like, hey, listen, I'm going to go let fear distort me a little bit. I'm going to let the world tempt me for a while. How about you stay in the car? We'll come back in just a little bit and we'll hang out again. And so we talked a little bit about that idea. Truth is, I don't know what to do yet. Okay, that's the truth. I'm not sure with what's happening in my life right this second. I'm not sure what to do right now or yet. Fear's version is, I'll never figure it out. I'm just trapped. I'll never figure this thing out. In emotional intelligence, I used to teach, there's a very powerful thing called TIE, temporary isolated with effort. Things can change. But then there's another, it's called the fixed mindset. They did all kinds of studies on this for your brain. But it's temporary, it's isolated with effort, things can change. I would change effort to, and with God, things can change. But you get the point. You better find your effort point in which you put your faith in so that you can change it. But the other side is it's PPP, permanent, pervasive, and you're powerless to do anything about it. So there's this formula when I'm working with businesses and we talk about this, because I would love to just say, hey, listen, there's the truth and there's fear. And let me talk to you about the difference. I probably could get away with it to a certain degree because everybody has experienced that. I don't know what to do yet. Have you ever experienced like you're stuck on something? Have you ever gone too far and said, I'll never figure this out? Because if you ever get to that point, you get fixed. The mind shift is where it's permanent. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. And you can't do anything about it. And then the truth is, I disappointed someone. Fear's version is, everyone is done with me. Wow. Fear takes a seed of truth and grows it into a forest of absolute distortion. So fear takes a possibility and treats it like a certainty. This is my next thought. So possibility, this might go wrong. Fear's version, this will go wrong. Possibility, they might not like what I said. Fear's version, they definitely think the worst of me. Fear just doesn't predict things in the negative. It makes it a catastrophe. It makes it the worst possible thing it could be. That's why it's called false evidence appearing real. That's why it's the image that you don't want to happen. We use terms like self-fulfilling prophecy. We do all kinds of things to describe how we let our fear get the best of us. Fear takes your wiring and paints the darkest version of it. The D, if I don't, remember the D's, get it what? Get it done. D's, if I don't take control, everything will fall apart. I have to be in charge. I have to take care of this. If I'm not liked, I have no value. What if I'm not popular? What if I'm not recognized? What if someone calls me out and says that I'm not fun or I'm not good enough? Then I have no value. S is if I speak up, I'll lose this relationship. If I challenge this truth, if I challenge this disharmony, what will happen? I'll lose this whole relationship if I tell the truth or if I create a little conflict here. C, if it's not perfect, I'm a failure. When I was in seminary, one of the things that we studied was a book called Happiness is a Choice. And it was by Menrith and Meyer. I highly recommend it. It's very old now, but because I went to seminary in 2000. And so, but the principle is still the same. What's that? Well, that book, I'm sorry, I don't mean it that way. I didn't mean it like that. Well, whatever file I just generated that now catapults you in the same, whatever pain that just caused for anyone in this room, I highly apologize. Anyway, in comparison to a book that was just written last year, 26 years ago was older. Okay. Let me go back over the C really quick. So the C is, if I'm not perfect, I'm a failure. And what they studied was, especially in that one behavior, that C-type style, they didn't call it the C. They called it like an obsessive compulsive or a perfectionistic type of behavior. And what they studied is that out of all of the personalities, it was one of the ones that struggled most when they couldn't get things right. Because I don't want to overdo this, but I'm just going to say it. If part of how I see myself is getting things done and I can't get them done, then I feel as though I've lost control as a D. If being happy and positive and optimistic and energizing and nobody wants my energy and inspiration, I feel like you don't like me. If being kind and steady and supportive and creating harmony, and then I have to make a hard decision and then challenge something or confront something, that feels completely opposite of the identity in which makes me feel most comfortable. And then finally, if making sure that things are precise and accurate and detailed and perfect and it doesn't work out, it feels as though not the thing failed, not the process failed, it feels as though I failed. And that's the biggest lie of all, is that you are not a personality. You're not a style. This world cannot do that to you. You can do it to you. You can believe that funhouse mirror, and that can distort your thoughts and ideas, but that's not what Scripture says. That's not why God sent His Son to forgive us. It's none of those things. Okay. Fear tells the worst possible version of the truth. But it still feels true, and that's why it's so convincing. Fear distorts how we see ourselves. Fear is a lens, not a location. It doesn't change who you are, it changes how you see who you are. Fear makes the D think they must control everything, the I think they must impress everyone, the S think they must keep everyone happy, and the C think they must get everything perfect. Fear whispers, you're not enough, you can't handle this, you're failing, you're alone, you're unworthy. Fear doesn't tell the truth. Fear tells the worst possible version of the truth. Fear is a funhouse mirror. It warps your identity until you don't recognize yourself anymore. Fear tells the worst possible version. I want to share a couple of ideas on that. So what's that mean? Fear rarely invents something completely false, okay? Or it wouldn't be good. Like, you got to have some truth in it so that you think, yeah, that's probably right. That's why I'm afraid of it. Fear rarely invents something completely false. Instead, fear takes something partially true and distorts it into the worst case scenario. Fear doesn't lie by creating fiction. It lies by exaggerating, magnifying, and twisting reality. And let me show you how this works. It's not absurd. It's not random. It's not imaginary. It's truth twisted. It's identity distorted. It's reality exaggerated. That's why people believe it, because it sounds so close to truth that it could be real. Fear says you're alone. Faith says, I will never leave you. Fear says you're not enough. Faith says my grace is sufficient. Fear says you're too broken. Faith says I make all things new. Faith doesn't sugarcoat reality. Faith corrects reality, and faith puts the mirror back in God's hands. So faith restores how God sees us. Faith doesn't give you a new identity. Faith gives you back the identity that God already gave you. You already had it. It was there, but fear stepped in and tried to tell you something was wrong with you. Faith says you are chosen, you are loved, you are forgiven, you are called, and you are equipped. And most importantly, you are mine. Faith is not positive thinking. Faith is accurate thinking, seeing yourself the way God sees you. Faith takes the mirror out of fear's hand and put it back into God's hand, and it restores clarity, confidence, courage, and a calling. Faith brings you back to the truth of who you've always been. Fear distorts identity. Faith restores identity. Love transforms your relationship. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at this idea. I think I'm on to go back. One more. One more. I think that's good right there. So when I look at this idea, no, go back to, go back a couple to, no, go one more. Go one more. Let me see if I can find it. One more. One more. Yeah, right there. Okay. So let's talk about the D in fear really quick. Control, force, intensity, domination. The I in fear, insecurity, over-talking, approval-seeking, emotional volatility. The S in fear, avoidance, withdrawal, people-pleasing, internalizing pain. The C in fear, hesitation, perfectionism, overthinking, paralysis. Fear doesn't change your wiring, it distorts it, as we talked about. And then go ahead and do the next one, Gabby. Make sure that says faith now. Just say faith. So what about the D in faith? How do you see yourself differently when you have faith? The D, courage, clarity, protection, decisive leadership. The I, encouragement, inspiration, joy, connection. The S, steadiness, loyalty, presence, emotional safety. The C, wisdom, discernment, precision, and truth. Faith doesn't erase your personality, it redeems it. Next one. We talked about Paul. In fear, it made him violent. It made him an enemy of Christians. With faith, it made him unstoppable for the gospel. For Peter, it made him impulsive and worried all the time that he wasn't going to be liked. But faith made him a shepherd. For Abraham, fear made him avoid conflict. But faith made him steady under pressure. For Moses, the sea, fear made him hesitate. I can't do this. Send somebody else. I'm not equipped to go and get in front of Pharaoh. But faith made him precise, trustworthy, and bold in front of Pharaoh. Every personality has a fear story. Every personality has a faith story. Every personality finds its fulfillment in Christ. I think that's important for all of us to remember, is that we've studied all these different things. We spent 3 hours just going through personality information, much less setting the foundation for it in the first probably 3 or 4 hours, only to find out that when we are under fear, we do a lot of weird stuff with our style. We would say we're out of control and we're in our weakness. And under faith, we're under control, or we're influencing people positively. Okay? And if we go back to that, we would say that's our strength. It's our strength under control, not our struggle in weakness. All right, next one, I think, Gabby. So out of all the things that can change you from fear to faith, the thing that I wrote down that I wanted to basically think about with you is this idea of love. So the one thing that changes everything is love. This is where we think through all the different things we've learned. We've learned about fear. We've learned about personality styles and wiring and how we're bent. If you remember, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Y'all remember this in Proverbs? We talked a little bit about that idea, because what the illustration was that I shared with you is that it's like an archer training a bow, and it bends a certain way. So once you've worked on it enough, it's bent in such a way that even if you put it down, if you came back, it'd still be bent that way because you worked on it so long. It's like anything else you've worked with over and over and over that creates a shape or a mold. And that's why it says, train up a child in the way he should go. And when they're old, they will not depart from it, because you've trained them in all these foundational things. So we've talked about fear. We've talked about personality styles and wiring. We've talked about behavior, emotion, and we've talked about thinking and actions, and we've done all these different things. And we've tried to talk about this idea of transformation. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of what? Your mind. But you can't get your mind right if you don't guard your what? God better guard your heart, because that's where the seed is. That's the character. That's where your will is. And so all those emotions that attack you have to have something of truth to fight it off. So love is what makes people brave. Love is what makes people whole. Love is what makes people new. And we've learned this one verse that hopefully you'll put to memory. It's pretty simple. 1 John 4:18, perfect love drives out fear. And where does perfect love come from? God. So ready? Not discipline, not willpower, not personality tests, not any of those things. It is love. I promise you, you're not going to drive out fear without it. You have to have God's perfect love to drive out fear. That's why that verse is there. There will be moments where you're going to be attacked. You're going to have negative thoughts. You're going to feel overwhelmed and confused and sad and anxious and a million other things that happens in life. And perfect love drives out fear. That's not a very hard verse to remember. So 1 John 4:18, let's do it together. Perfect love drives out fear. That's only 5 words. We learned all 10 commandments. All 10. We can do those 5 words. Perfect love drives out. One more time. Fear. All right, go ahead and switch it. So love helps us see ourselves differently. When someone truly loves you, I want y'all to listen to this. This is really important. When someone truly loves you, you begin to believe you're worth loving. You know what I discovered after 20 years of teaching high school, sitting in a classroom, including the first story I told you. That young lady basically questioned if her life was worth living because every relationship she talked about was one that she didn't like. I hate Kingwood. I hate myself. I hate my parents. I hate these kids. I hate these teachers. It was like every relationship was broken. And so the only thing she thought, well, it must be me. The saddest thing that I ever saw when teaching high school was being in a school as big as Memorial I taught at and Kingwood High School I taught at. And there's 3,000 to 4,000 students, and yet a single person can feel completely alone. I've worked in companies where at moments where I'm surrounded by 5,000 employees, and I felt completely alone. What? How's that possible? There's people everywhere. How can we get to a point where we're surrounded by human beings everywhere we go, but yet still feel completely alone? Yeah, because when someone truly loves you, when you feel that love, all of a sudden you begin to believe you're worth loving. And that's one of the hardest things on the planet, is to actually, in this world, to love your neighbor as yourself. We have to know that that's one of the things that helps us feel as part of this world again. And that's why we're called to do it. We love God first so that we get everything right. And then second, we love our neighbor as ourselves with all our heart, with all our mind, with all our soul, with all our strength. And don't forget what we said, because all the other 8 hang on those first 2. And we talked about it. The reason why people steal and do things they're, covet and envy and lie is because they don't have the first 2. And they're grounded in love God first and then love your neighbor as yourself. But don't forget, it's really hard to love somebody else when you're finding it hard to love yourself. You've got to have love to give away. Love helps us see others differently. You stop seeing people as threats or competitors or critics. I mean, if I could just remind people, like when I'm doing a business talk, that I probably don't have to do conflict resolution if you just follow the first 2 commandments. I'm not kidding. Like if I could just teach you, first put God first, and then second, love your neighbor as yourself. Conflict resolution would be, we're just talking to one another about what's honest. But don't worry, because the ego will get in place, because Satan uses that one as best as almost anybody. Hey, just want to let you know, you have a bigger title than them, or you're more important than them, or you've been here longer than them. They really don't have anything to say. I can't believe they spoke up in this meeting and said something contradictory to me. And then the next thing you know, there you are, right back in your place of trying to make sure that they feel small while you feel big. You stop seeing people as threats, competitors, or critics. People with really high emotional intelligence, really good influence in other human beings' lives, actually see other people as an opportunity to learn. They see them as part of a team that they hired. Like, I just want to let you know, I know we put you through a resume process. We hired you. You've been working here for 2 years. However, I just also want to let you know your thoughts don't count. Okay. Congratulations. But I will be listening to some other person from another company talk about how they handle things, and I'll listen to them, because I sure want to know what my competitor's doing. Okay, congrats. Love helps us love others as ourselves. You cannot love others well until you know you are loved. Okay, so I told you I was going to just say something a little personal, and then I think we're on that one. Okay, yeah. So I can safely say that in my life, and I told you one of the biggest struggles, and if I do a series in the fall, what I'm going to do it on is called A Walk with My Father, and it's the entire. You'll get another book, by the way, in case you're the seventh. Y'all want to come again. I'd love to see y'all. But the reality is this: is that I wrote that book actually as a precursor to Influencer Incorporated. This book is kind of an afterthought, even though I wrote it first. I should have written the first one first, but my dad was alive, so I refused to write it. And I told you why, because when I would first start thinking about my personality, I struggled terribly to get along with my dad. Everything I did seemed like it was a personal affront to him. So you talk too much. You shouldn't talk that much. You talk to everybody. You shouldn't do that. Why are you telling everybody stuff? I was like, I don't know. I couldn't help it. I was just being myself. I'll try not to be myself anymore. You didn't do that right. Fix that. That's not right. Fix that. You should pay attention more. Why don't you do that? You should focus while you're working on that. If you leave that spot, all the other work is worthless because that one spot shows that you didn't follow through. Okay, congratulations. I appreciate it. And so slowly, remember what we talked about? First, you tolerate that. Then you start to avoid it. And then eventually you eliminate it. Okay? That's what happens when you feel misunderstood long enough by the people you care about most. And then eventually what happens is, once you've tolerated, avoided, and eliminated it, I'm going to give you a bigger metaphor. You've now just eliminated the one person you want to be proud of you. And now you have no North Star. You have no compass. And now you just do whatever you feel like doing. As Zig Ziglar would say, if anything goes, eventually everything's gone. And believe me, I made sure everything was gone. I didn't worry about my character anymore. I didn't worry about anything. So when I went off to college to take care of myself, my only goal was to make sure I took care of me and I didn't care about anything else. I'm not going to worry about what people think of me anymore. I'm not going to, but here's the bad part. I already knew I was wrong. I knew when I was doing it, I was wrong. I knew it felt terrible. I knew it wasn't who I wanted to be. So Minirth and Meyer, back to Minirth and Meyer. There's like a scale. And they talked about this idea that, let's say your identity was on a scale from 0 to 10. 0 would be your, non-existent, but let's call it 1 to 10. So 1 to 10. And the stronger your identity and self-esteem was, based on a truth like God, the more that identity helped you make it through really tough things. And then as you started doing more and more terrible things, it was like your self-esteem kept taking hits. And so there would be people that were strung out, addicted, everything. And let's say there's no way you see yourself in a perfect way, in a way that you were created to do something of worth to this world, and you want to give away all this good stuff when you treat yourself like you're a 1. Remember what I talked about? So you can't give away what you don't got. And what do we do to things we don't value? How do we treat things we don't value? We throw them away. So when a human being doesn't value themselves anymore, they don't see themselves, they look at the funhouse mirror and they don't see themselves as a 10 anymore, the way God sees you. You see yourself as a 1 or a 2 or a 3, and you can keep beating yourself up all the way down to 1 or 2, to where more addiction, more things, more struggles, more whatever it is, and you just get yourself to where your identity is so low that the only thing you do is surround yourself by other people that think like you. That's how it works. Is because I don't need to feel bad about myself. I'm surrounded by everybody that's the same. So if you get into an addictive cycle, or if you get into a problem with your life, you go surround yourself by other people. Now you think everything's perfect because they're not showing you any differences. Okay. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because I'm struggling with my dad over here and I don't see myself right. So I'm going 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. I don't know how far I went, but it was bad enough to where I didn't want to be alive. I know that. I know I made enough bad decisions to where I looked at myself in the mirror and the fear had distorted so badly that I said to myself, I don't want to be alive anymore. I don't want to be a part of this world. And I remember a lot of cool things happened at that same time, but one in particular was a neighbor that when we first moved into this house, this neighbor would kept coming over to my friend and I, who I'd grown up here in Kingwood with, and they kept coming over and saying, hey, you want to ever come over on Sunday and have, now we're 19. And we're living in a house together, me and 2 other guys in Austin. And they would always invite us for after church, just come eat with them. And I was like, that's the weirdest thing. But in the back of it, listen, I went to church my whole life. And so the back of my mind, I was like, that's very nice, but no. Because I can't be around that. If I'm a 4 and they're acting like a 9, there's no way I don't need for somebody to tell me I'm better. I already know where I'm at, baby. Let me just stay here. I feel terrible about my life already. Let's not try to make me feel better. Okay. So over and over and over, these people would invite us. Right in the time we're at my worst, the lady across the street actually commits suicide. And unfortunately, I got to witness part of it, which was terrible. And so, yeah, it's not good. And so not actually the act of it, okay? But you don't have to worry about that. Anyway, so I am now seeing out loud what my brain was thinking and trying to do everything to reconstruct why in the world was I thinking that. And right next to me, guess who's standing next to me? The people next door, and we're all standing out there as the ambulance, and they're taking her away. They're right in front of me, and they're like, and this gentleman had the gall to say this. You ready? You want to hear what he said? On this side of the street, we have God. On that side of the street, there's darkness. Yeah, and I said, no, to me, I was like, I can't believe that guy just said that. And it just made me mad. And it made me mad not because it wasn't the truth, because it was the truth. It made me mad because I didn't want to hear stuff like that. I didn't want to hear that somehow what she did was wrong, because heaven forbid that mean I was about to do something wrong with my own life. Well, anyway, I called my mom, apologized 52 times. She had no idea why I was apologizing. But in the end, all of that just kind of strung along these ideas that maybe my life wasn't worth very much. I thank goodness that stopped that thought, but I still struggled. And the more I struggled with my identity, the worse my relationships were. I'm not going to tell you the good part, because I'm going to wait for y'all to come back in the fall, because I want you to hear what my dad did. But what I am going to tell you is something that's equally as important. I fixed my relationship. Well, my dad and I fixed our relationship. And then one day I'm sitting at a tennis shop. I'm just sitting there. I was coaching tennis at Kingwood High School. I was probably still about a good solid 5. I'd maybe made it out of it'd get away from Austin, moved me up at least 2 points. So from a 3 to a 5. But I started teaching, and that probably gave me another point. My students started to see me differently, thought I was funny. They thought I was a good teacher. They looked at me differently. They were excited about having me teach. That probably gave me at least another point. So we'll call me a 6, a solid 6. And so I'm sitting. I was coaching tennis at the time, and I come into the tennis shop, and you'd have to see the tennis shop. It's just a small area. It's not very big. Just what was that thing? It was like a T building. It's like a temporary building. So it's like this temporary building, and inside this temporary building was maybe half of this was shoes, like a little shoe rack. And then there was a little spot over there where you could had rackets on there. It's a mobile home. Okay, it's like one big rectangle. It's not big. And so let's say you're right there, at the end of that desk, 7 feet away, there's the checkout counter where he strings rackets and all this other kind of stuff. And I played tennis in high school, and so I knew him from when I was younger, but now I'm adult, 24, I don't know, 23, 24. And so now I'm sitting in there because I need to get a case of balls for the tennis team, because I've got to coach. So I'm sitting there, and this lady walks in, and she's talking to the other lady that's in line, and then they start talking back and forth. And hey, where are you from? Do you play tennis? I play tennis. And then this lady keeps looking at me nonstop. She just looks over at me, and then I would look at her. There's no one else. It's just 2 ladies, Tim, who's the owner, and me. That's it, 4 whole people. And I'm sitting here, and they're right there. Okay. And she would look over at me, and then she'd start talking again. I play Houston Rec Club. You play Houston Rec Club? You play? Yeah, I play River Oaks. I play River Oaks. And she's going back and forth. And then finally, eventually, she says, the lady was upset because she couldn't get a racket. So she's like, hey, I can bring you. I'm going to play there tonight in Houston, so I can just drop off your racket for you. I was like, man, that was actually pretty nice. And so they made some kind of deal. The lady leaves. The other lady that she's over, so I'm looking at me, just walks right up to me, and she goes like this. Are you married? And I was like this. No. She goes, well, I have a daughter, and she would just love you. And I was like, okay. I want to preface this because, as you probably can figure this out, that's her daughter. But here's the whole point: is when you are a 3 or a 4 in your identity, everything you do is stupid. You're trying to wreck your life. You're trying to come up with every reason to mess your life up because you don't see yourself right. You see yourself in a distorted fun mirror, and the worse things that happen, the more the distortion occurs. And you can't stop it. You just keep going through the spiral of it gets worse and worse and worse. You're like, yeah, that must be the way it looks. Then you go to a different mirror. Yep, it's even worse now. I mean, the one that like makes you bigger and skinnier and it just distorts you worse. And so you just keep doing them. You're just like, what about this mirror? That's even worse. Good God. What is going on with my life? Okay. Anyway, so I'm doing all this. And so like I said, I maybe work myself to a 6. And this lady standing in front of me, but I don't want any part anymore of how I experienced Austin. I was in a fraternity. I had dated girls that were in sororities and all this other stuff. And I had a very clear mindset of, I'm going to go be a teacher now, and I want away from all that, and I don't want any part of that world anymore. Good. So she's looking at me, and she goes, well, I have a daughter. So are you married? No. And I said, well, I have a daughter. And she would just love you like that. And I went, okay. I said, do you have a picture of her? She goes, yes. And so anyway, because I was trying to get rid of her. And so anyway, so she runs out to her car, and she comes back in, and now she's got this wallet, and she's like, and this is when she was 2. And then, I'm not joking. This is 8. And this is when she was 14. And then she was 18. And then she just graduated from Texas Tech. See how beautiful she is? And I went like this. Yeah. And she said, see how beautiful she is? And I was like, yeah, she's very pretty. She was like this. She's not pretty. She's beautiful. And I was like, okay, no problem. Now this, hang in there. She hates when I tell this part, but it's the truth. There's only 3 people in this whole place. And she looks around like there's 100 people in this, I'm like, it's going to be real secretive. And she goes like this. And my daughter's a good girl, if you know what I mean. And I was like, I probably don't, because if she went to Texas Tech and she was in a sorority, she's probably a 3 too. She's probably jacked up her life pretty good. And so anyway, and that's what my thought of was anybody that was in a sorority or anything like that, because all of them drank and everything. It just didn't matter. Okay, you get the point. And so I said, oh, that's really nice. And then she could wear white on her wedding day, if you know what I mean, like that. And I went, and of course, so I teach science, right? This is I'm not making this up. This is a true story. And then I told her, because I have a sense of humor, and I thought it would be funny if I said it. I said, well, and I taught biology. And I said, well, she'll never have to worry about STDs in her life. Because I thought I would have this lady leave me alone. Like I was going to be, she goes, ST what? I was like, never mind, forget it. And so anyway, she asked me my name, and I said, Pete Hinojosa. And she goes, what's that? And I was like, that's my last name. And she goes, no, what is it? And I was like, it's Spanish. She goes, well, you don't look Spanish. And I was like, well, and then in my mind, I always think, when people have done that to me in my life, like, so what's your name? So Pete Hinojosa. What is that? What do you mean? What's that last thing? What did you say? Hinojosa? Hinojosa? What is it? Hinojosa? What is it? Anyway, so anytime we go somewhere, table for 2, Mr. Hashosha, whatever. And so anyway, what's even funnier is if you see them introduce me as the keynote. I'm the keynote of several thousand people. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Pete Hinojosa. You're like, all right. Well, Pete Hinojosa couldn't make it today, but I'll stand in for him. And so anyway, so I do all that kind of stuff because you just get used to it when people destroy your name all the time. So what is that? And so in my brain, I was thinking, is Hispanic? Okay. I like your daughter. She's pretty. So I take her outside. I show her my Chevy. It's twice pipes, button top, candy apple red. It's clean. Is that what you needed? I mean, I don't understand. I don't speak like that, but in case you needed to, I can. So I didn't say that. And then we kind of go back and forth a little bit more, and I try to convince her that I'm probably not a good fit for her daughter, because in my brain, what I was thinking was, I don't want to go back into this world. And then she made this comment, and I said, listen, I still to this day, I think it was from some bad baggage. And I told her, ma'am, I'm just going to be a teacher, thinking that from what I heard, Houston Country Club, all these other things, I'm not wealthy. I'm not going to be an engineer. I'm not going to be an accountant. I've already dealt with this a million times in college. So what's your major? What's this? I'm going to go into education. Really? Why? I don't know. Because I want to. I don't know. I'm not going to go to one of the big 8 at that time, was all the accounting firms. I'm not going to work for Exxon or Shell. I want to be a teacher. Well, I mean, that's your choice. Yeah, of course it was. But that pretty much excluded me from every human being's thought my senior year in college, because anybody that was looking for somebody that was going to make a ton of money or whatever it wasn't going to be me. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind, and I said, ma'am, I'm just going to be a teacher. And she goes, well, that's great, because my daughter went to Texas Tech to be a teacher, and she's going to be a teacher too. And I was like, well, that's interesting. That might work. And she is beautiful. Okay. So I don't call her that day because you don't want to seem desperate. And so I don't call her the next day, which is Tuesday. So I call her Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I call her the next day, basically. I waited a whole 24 hours because it's like a rule if you have any self-respect at all for yourself. And so I call, her dad answers the phone, and I said, can I please speak to Wendy? Yes. And she gets on the phone. You ready for this one? This is how our relationship starts. Yeah, hi, this is Pete. I didn't know how to say, your mom was trying to no, anyway, I just said, hey, this is Pete. I met your mom, said that, I should give you a call. Ready? This is the first thing my wife said to me, very first words out of her mouth. Ready? Do you believe in God? That's her first, do you believe in God? That's the first 5 words she asked me. Now, thinking I wasn't prepared for that opener, I went like this. You mean like on Sundays? She didn't laugh, and I thought, that didn't work. I was like, yes, I believe in God. And she hesitated a little bit more, and she goes, okay. And then we started talking, and we talked, I don't know, for the next, hour and a half, something like that. Pretty good while, because I'm a pretty good chatter, and trying to do my best. All right, so now I tell you all that to tell you this, is that I already knew that it went, so that Friday we went out, and then 6 months later we were married. We've been married, I don't know, 33 years, going on 33 years now. But what's interesting was, what I've been trying to share with you is this idea, is that the closer I got to her in those first 6 months, the more that 5 and 6 problem became a real problem. Because when you have somebody that at 5 years old, 5 years old has accepted Christ, because she heard her mom trying to witness to her brother and try to help him come to know Christ. And she said, well, I don't, basically, I want to know God. I want to know Christ like that. And so she just decided, while her mother was trying to convince her older brother, how much older was he? So 11, and she was 5. She just decided right then to accept Christ. So I'm going to give you a little hint. From that moment on, every other temptation, every time Jesus was left alone at Texas Tech, she brought him with her. And everything that her mom said was not only true, it was 100% true. And she had found a way to live her whole life for that 5 until she met me, unfortunately, until she met me, to live for God, to live for Christ. And how in the world could I possibly, at a 5 or a 6, work with somebody that was a 10? So the first thing I tried to do was tell her to leave me alone. Like, the closer I got to her, the more I felt terrible about myself, and the more I didn't want to be a part of it. And I tried to convince her to not date me. You don't understand. I am not right for you. This is terrible. You don't understand my past. Everything about me is wrong. You can't mess yourself up by going out with someone like me.
You didn't say it that way.
I did.
You would try to, I met this girl.
That was only one way of doing it, but that was a nice way of trying to tell you.
She's better. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, here's the whole point.
But you had a mission.
Well,
My thought was, if he was supposed to be the right one, then he would be the right one. And if he wasn't, I had enough confidence in my relationship with Christ that, I wasn't going to worry about that.
Yeah. And that was infuriating, by the way. So I remember the final moment where I basically told her, listen, are you sure you want to be with me? Because you have to understand that my past is terrible and who I was awful. And then I remember we were in our car or wherever it was, and not our car at the time, but it was before we got married. And you said, listen, God is forgiving you, so I'm not going to hold you to a higher standard than God. And so just don't break my heart. And I was like, I don't know what that happened in that moment when she said that to me, but I do know this, that as a man and someone that wanted to be a protector and not be a terrible person anymore, that really made me think, was I willing to protect her and protect her heart? Because she had protected it all that time. And so I can make that deal. And of course, we've been married ever since. But I knew that I had flaws. I knew that I had failed. I knew that I was afraid. I knew my personality at its worst moments. And then God did something I wasn't expecting, which is he put somebody of tremendous faith in front of me and loved me even despite me not loving myself. And if I would just allow it, it might be able to change the way you see yourself. If you would allow someone to love you and think you're okay and see them the way they see you and believe in you the way they believe in yourself the way they believe in you, it can change everything about you. And I wrote 220 pages to explain it because that was the difference. She influenced me with her faith and her patience and her kindness. And sometimes, I'll just say this for our children, is that you think that when she points you back to God or when she tells you about Christ or a relationship with that, she's doing that because that's the truth. And she's not trying to hurt you, and she's not trying to, no one that's trying to point you towards Christ is trying to beat you over the head with the Bible or telling you what you can or can't do. Here's the reality. You can do whatever you want. You can believe in fear and let it distort you, or you can believe in faith and let it change you forever. And more importantly, you can let God's love be so strong in your life that when you let his love do its work, it'll transform you for the rest of your life. You'll actually start treating people completely different. And again, that's why I shared this book with you today, Influence Incorporated, is because the whole entire chapter and the whole book is dedicated to her seeing me differently, and it changed the way I treated everybody else. Now, do I struggle still? Yes. Does she infuriate me? Absolutely. Does she do weird things and act like an S all the time and is really kind and gets taken advantage of, and I don't want her to be because she's too kind? I tell her to stand up for herself. Yeah. I do all the same things. The only thing is that I return back to God way quicker afterwards and say, hey, by the way, sorry for acting that way. I should have given you more space, or I should have let you reflect. So we always try to find a way back to that even ground again where we love each other. But this tool that I've been sharing with you is the tool that's helped me understand the basics of human beings so that I can understand that they're not waking up early to make my life miserable, right? Do you have a ruler? Oh, right? They're not trying to do that. What they're trying to do is just be themselves the way God made them. And then we have to figure out how to love ourselves enough to love them when they act like themselves, which sounds weird, but it's true. So Wendy's love, I wrote down, didn't fix me, but it did reveal something. It showed me who I could be. It showed me who God always knew I was. And slowly fear lost its grip, shame lost its voice, and I began to walk in the identity of God that I've been speaking about all this time. And he would say to me, you're mine. Faith is not positive thinking. Faith is accurate thinking. And then as I finish this up, I want to just kind of say this to y'all. You'll never become who God made you to be by trying harder. You'll become who God made you to be by being loved deeper. I'm going to say it one more time. You'll never become who God made you to be by trying harder. You'll become who God made you to be by being loved deeper. So I want you to, I'm going to pray over everybody. And it's not going to be short. I'm going to actually pray, and it's going to be a little bit. It'll be a good Baptist prayer. And so let me share this with you, and if you'll bow your heads, I'll just kind of take you through this last thought and sum up everything that we've been talking about, but I'll do it with a prayer. First, may the love of God reshape how you see yourself, restore how you see others, and release you to the love of the world that Christ has loved you. But most importantly, you are not who fear says you are. You are not the worst version of your story. You're not the sum of your mistakes, your wiring, or your weaknesses. You are who God says you are. You are loved. You are chosen. You are seen. You are worth the blood of Jesus. Fear may have distorted your reflection, but faith restores the truth. And love is rewriting your identity right now. You are not defined by the moments that when you lost control, or the moments you tried too hard, or the moments you stayed silent, or the moments you hesitated. You are defined by the God who formed you, the Savior who redeemed you, and the love that is transforming you. So I speak over all of you today. May fear lose its grip on your mind. May shame lose its voice in your heart. May the lies you believed about yourself fall powerless to the ground. And may the love of God, the love that found you, the love that held you, the love that never gives up on you, reshape how you see yourself, restore how you see others, and release you to love the world the way Christ has loved you. You are becoming who you were always meant to be, not by trying harder, but by being loved deeper. You are loved, you are new, you are His. Amen. All right, you guys. Thank y'all for letting me share over this last 9 weeks. And I appreciate the opportunity that we've had together. And I look forward to, if y'all want to come for the prelude, which is I wrote this book to try to figure out how to work with my dad and Wendy and everybody else. Like, how do you influence people positively? But if you come back for a walk with my father, I'll tell you how much we try to run from God and get away from God. And it's typically in the relationships that He wants us to hold on to the tightest. And so that's why I call it a walk with my father. It's all the times that I walked with my dad when I was young, and then when I got older again before he passed away. But more importantly, the moment in which I tried to run from him and found my way back. And so I think you'll really enjoy that series. We will dissect the prodigal son in every possible way you can even imagine. Okay. All right. Thank y'all so much.